Hello, this is Kim with Standing on Solid Ground. I am your host of this motivational and inspirational podcast. And today I want to talk about disobedience. I know that this is something that a lot of people do not want to talk about because it is a negative thing, but it is a necessary thing to talk about. If we go back to the beginning of time in the Garden of Eden, with Adam and Eve were walking around. They had no shame. They had no worries, no stress, not anything. And the serpent come along. That's the deceiver. So we have the deceiver, the malice heart, the evil, the hatred towards God because God is glorious. He is all powerful, all knowledge, all wisdom. He's everything. And so we have a jealous spirit already in the Garden of Eden. We really never paid attention to what really is in the Garden of Eden when it came to the serpent. He was a deceiver. He had a malice spirit. He had hatred in his heart. He had evil. He was just everything opposite of God. And Satan needed someone, something to overturn whatever God was trying to do in the beginning. Now, the number one sin of a human being, as I see it, now I could be wrong, but as I see it, is disobedience. Disobedience is something that God just do not tolerate. He do not accept. It is not a part of his list, his criteria. Disobedience. Now, if we were to go and we are to look up what disobedient means, failure or refusal to obey rules or someone in authority. So was in authority? God was. God was in authority. And when the serpent surely was telling Eve, surely God didn't mean that if you eat of the fruit of the tree of the good of the knowledge of the good and evil, that you will surely die. This is a deceptive spirit, and it is very prominent even in today's time. Even in today's moments, it is prevalent. Genesis 2:17, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Now, I'm sure God meant literally, but I know spiritually they would surely die. And though serpent, he wasn't going to allow, them to get away with that because he had to set the course of his evil doing. And he knew that a human being would be the great source for this to take place. Now, disobedience is really the course of all sins. If you think about it, it is where the course of sin really began after the devil or after the serpent had deceived Eve and caused her to contemplate in her mind what God had said. if we are truly of God, and if we are truly of His Word, when God says something, we need to take it and run away with it. Don't hesitate about it. Don't trip over it. Don't stumble over it. Don't stagger over nothing. You are to run away with it. And don't stop. Don't let the devil stop you. They say, the Lord told me that this is what He was going to do, and I'm going to run away with it. I'm going to accept this and believe this. But because the eye, and see, the eye is a very dangerous thing, because what the eye sees is what the eye wants. And when you register it in your brain, you'll speak it from your lips, and it's embedded in your heart. So whatever a person speaks from their heart, it's truly what is in their heart that will come from their lips. And if it's something that they perceive with their eyes, man, it is a very dangerous thing. It's almost like a man who, like my son, when he met his wife, he saw her and he wanted to be with her. He wanted her so bad that his eyes could not get off of her. He wanted to be with her. And that became his heart's desire to have her. And then after a while, he started speaking about it, because this was what was in his heart. And I told him, if she's good enough to be with, and if you feel like that you want to be in bed with her, she's good enough to marry. If she's not good enough to marry, she's not good enough to sleep with. And I told him that because I did not want him violating her, getting her heartstrings all tied up, and he wasn't going to be with her. I didn't like that. And I told him that. Many people would disagree with that. Many people wouldn't say, well, that was none of your business. When I am a child of God, and if God don't like something, He's going to put it in your heart and in your spirit to speak it. And when you speak it, that's all you have to do. Just put it out there. It's up to them whether to do it or not. See, the decision is still theirs. Well, in the event of Eve, she saw this fruit. And when she saw this fruit, it looked good to her. Where the better it looked to her, the more desiring it was for her to have it. Now, I'm sure God had multiple trees that looked identical to that one tree that she could have ate from. But she chose this one because God said, thou shalt not. And oftentimes, if you look at signs today, do not walk on the grass. What do people do? They walk on the grass. Do not enter this way. What do people do? They enter that way. This is a one-way street, and I have seen people drive the wrong way. There are those that do not care what the laws are. This is where disobedience comes in from the beginning of time. That when Eve listened to the serpent, and the serpent was like, hey, did God say that you would surely die if you ate of this tree? Well, she already knew that God did. But she wanted that fruit. She wanted to eat of this tree. Well, in response of her disobedience, it didn't come out immediately after she ate it but the shame came after he ate of that fruit. And so when we disobey, shame comes from our disobedience. If we go out here and that God said thou shalt not steal, and you go out here and you steal and you get caught and you go to jail, that's shame. Because God said don't do it and you did it anyway. Why do you think that so many people hide away, tuck away, do things in the dark where it's hidden? They already know it's wrong. That is the beautiful thing about a human brain. We already know it's wrong, but we do it anyway. We do it anyway because it's a challenge. It is a fetish. It's exciting. Whatever they want to put on it, they do it anyway. But we already know it's wrong. We already know that this is something that God did not want us to do. But because of the thrill or the adrenaline rushing behind it, we do it anyway. And when we do these things anyway, there are consequences that come in behind it. Now, if we go to Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Yea, shall not surely die. For God doth know that the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Now, we get into this mentality thing that we think with our flesh and not with our spirit. And this is what happened. Eve was thinking with the flesh and not of her spirit. This is where that separation of flesh and spirit really began. Because if she had listened to the spirit would have told her, no, God told you not to eat of that tree. But she already knew that. The man that God told, do not, whatever door you go through, you don't exit. Don't eat at the man's table. Don't drink with the man. You come wherever direction you go in another direction to return. God told him specifically, do not eat nor drink. In whatever direction you went in, don't come back the same way. Whatever door you enter, don't exit the same way. God told him specifics. But when this man came after him and told him that I'm a prophet of God, instead of this man saying, Father, you told me not to eat at this table. You told me not to drink at this table. You told me whatever door I entered, not to re-enter it, but exit a different way. You told me whatever road I took, not to take the same path back home. You told me these things. And now you send in a prophet telling me something different. This is something that we need to do. God cannot tell us every single thing. He likes to see if what he told us we will follow. I remember back in 2020, when God told me, I need for you to start a podcast. And I'm thinking to myself, I am the worst speaker. Is three of us. My brothers speak better than I do. They have more diction or better way of putting something out better than I do. And God told me, but I called you. I didn't call your brothers. I called you to do this. And I'm like, okay, Lord. And I procrastinate because I'm fighting myself. But God gave me time. God gave me time. And when I got the podcast up and going in 2021, it flourished from there. I've had my bumps in the road, but my obedience made the difference. It didn't matter how perfect it was. It wasn't how many people that listened. It wasn't about how many views I had or how many comments, whether positive or negative. It was about my obedience. That's what it was all about. God will expose us if we don't do what He asks us to do. God will put us on display. And as you sing that when they ate of this food, and she saw that the food was good, and, desired to be wise, the wise thing to do was not to eat of the fruit. That was the wise thing. But she ate of it anyway. Then she gave some to her husband. And then they realized that they were naked. Now, as long as they were in the Garden of Eden, no clothing, not anything, there was no shame. But God bought their shame when they ate of that forbidden fruit and when they disobeyed. So shame comes from disobedience, and disobedience produces shame. And if you think about all the people that have been found out, things have been found out about them and discovered about them. Shame came along with it. And that's where the disobedience comes in. I mean, a person that runs the stop signs, or those that do the speed limit beyond the speed limit. Shame comes about. Embarrassment comes about. You know why? Because if they're in a car accident, well, let's just say they become paralyzed from the neck down. They can't ever walk again. That they have to depend on someone else to clothe them, to bathe them, to feed them, to carry them around, to get them to the doctor. They can't do that. Poses a little bit of an embarrassment to them because of their disobedience. Now, I'm not talking about those that are in the military that get harmed by missiles or grenades or what have. I'm not talking about those individuals. I'm talking about individuals that do not like to obey the law. It is our job to obey the laws of the land. If we do not obey the laws of the land, that is like disobeying God. Believe it or not. We are to obey the laws. Romans 13:1 and 2. Obey the government, for God is the one who has put it there. There is no government anywhere that God has not placed in power. So those who refuse to obey the law of the land are refusing to obey God, and punishment will follow. There it is. I don't look at being disobedient as a good thing to shine. it brings about embarrassment and shame. So when we think about doing things and we talk about how much we love the Lord, how much he has done for us, and we praise the Lord, and we the loudest thing in church, and we're doing everything opposite of what God is asking us. Trust me when I tell you, He's going to put you on Front Street. He's going to expose you. I've seen it so many times over, how people get exposed for their wrongdoing and they're claiming to be Christians. Be careful about what title you put on yourself, because God will expose the opposite if you're not walking the right way. This is Kim with Standing on Solid Ground. You have yourself a wonderful and blessed day.